Good evening. I'm Kevin, and my topic is video games. And I'm sure most of you guys in this classroom have played or still play video games, and almost nearly everyone our age knows better than to let video games influence our behavior or health. But children don't always know the difference between reality and fantasy, and their minds are influenced a lot more than older video game players. And therefore, my major claim is that video games have a negative effect on children. And my secondary claims, my first one is that video games increase antisocial behavior. And the second claim is that they promote unhealthy habits in children. And lastly, they cause increased violent thoughts and actions in children. And for the first claim, how they increase antisocial behavior in children is children who become involved in video games have been found to spend below average time with other people, to communicate less than normal, and to feel more depressed and lonely. Video games affect children indirectly by infringing on other activities like taking part in fewer activities, spending less time with people like family and friends, having less hobbies. In many games, violence is rewarded, like getting extra points for killing a boss. And studies show that inhibitions against violent behavior have been weakened, so children are always talking about violent games at school. And due to video games, children are more likely to hit their classmates or peers because they want to imitate the game they just played. Also, they're more likely to argue, disobey class rules, and be less willing to be patient for what they want. Also, they're shown to lag behind in school. And for the second claim, how video games promote unhealthy habits in children, studies have shown that heavy video game users have slower brain development, and children who are actively involved in games engage in fewer physical activities. And both of these unhealthy habits have short-term and long-term effects. Slower brain development results, it's pretty straightforward. School is harder, and sometimes interaction with other people is harder, and this causes short-term effects in school and long-term effects just throughout life in general. And fewer physical activities result in short-term problems like obesity, which can turn into long-term effects, just different health problems. And there was a study done in St. Helena in 2000. St. Helena is one of the world's most remote inhabited islands. It's off the western shores of Africa. And Tony Charlton, a British professor, and his colleagues studied children on the island. And the islanders had no TV or video games. And so these scientists observed the children in the classroom and on the playground. And the observations and studies show that the children studied hard and behaved well, and the children's behavior was shaped by family, school, neighborhood, and social community rather than media exposure. And for the last claim, how video games increase violent thoughts and actions in children. Young children are always imitating violent characters and superheroes, and video games, like mostly violent ones, normalize violence and focus on making violence fun rather than showing the negative consequences of violence. And studies show that playing a video game for just 20 minutes causes an increase in aggressive thinking, feelings like anger and hate, and psychological arousal like heart rate and aggressive behavior. And theorists argue that constant exposure to violence makes children less sensitive to real human suffering, which makes children think that violence is the only way to resolve problems and conflicts. And the study was done in 1960 by psychologists Dr. Aaron and Dr. Pressman, and about the lasting impact of video games. And they took 800 8-year-olds and studied them for years and years, and found that the children who played many hours of violent video games tended to be more aggressive on the playground and in the classroom. And this aggressiveness was measured by the frequency, intensity, the type of act, the target, and the patterns and cycles of the children's aggressiveness. And the scientists checked back with the kids 11 and 22 years later, and the aggressive children, when they were 8, grew up to be even more aggressive than the ones that showed less signs. And there was also an incident in August of this year, it was like 2 months ago. A student in Taiwan killed a taxi driver because he wanted his money, and he confessed that he copied it from Grand Theft Auto, which most of you guys know has violence, drugs, prostitution, and stealing cars. And from my personal experience, when I was really young, I had my Power Rangers and WrestleMania video games, and those got taken away from me because I also imitated the fight moves on my brother. And in conclusion, video games, they increase antisocial behavior in children, promote unhealthy habits in children, and cause increased violent thoughts and actions.